Well, good evening and welcome to Renew US PJNET Live. We do this every Tuesday night. It is a time we set aside the cares of the day, and we have a time of fellowship. We have a time of praise and worship. We have a time of exalting the King of Kings, and we have a time of Dell Didway. And Dell is our guest every Tuesday evening, and we're very blessed to have him. And let me be fair and very straightforward. This was recorded on Monday night because both Dell and myself have some plans for when we'd normally do this. Let me just bring Dell in. Dell, you have some plans, and tell me what you're doing tomorrow night, so that I'll give you my excuse. You give me yours.
Well, my wife Angie is a director at Shawnee State University over student services, career student services, and entrepreneurship. She's hosting a pretty big event down there where a lot of high school teens come in and compete for scholarship money, and there's judges and everything. And there's a local magazine that I write for, and they also want me to go down and write a story about it as well. So I'll be down there. I have to do one radio interview for my book, and then I'll attend her event, and then we'll write a piece for PM Magazine, which is a fantastic little magazine in our area. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be doing some little bit of fun and work at the same time.
Okay. Now, God, you know, everybody has a gift, and clearly your gift is one of writing, but you've got a great radio voice too, by the way. And I just have this theory that we're supposed to use our gift for God's glory, and you are doing that, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you.
I sometimes wonder how you get connected with some individuals that appear in your blog. This week was no surprise. You spent some time with Ohio Right to Life. Mm-hmm. Share with us about that, because I'm sure that had an impact on your blog today.
Oh yeah, we've been involved with Ohio Right to Life. In fact, at one time I was on their statewide board many years ago, and then it's time, because I live 2 hours south of Columbus. So after a while, I could no longer fill in that capacity. So we volunteer, and my wife and her sister operate Sauter County Right to Life, which is a division chapter of Ohio Right to Life. So we've always been involved and in touch with them, and they're very Ohio Right to Life is very active in their legislative agenda, and we're friends with their director, with the president, Mike Ganadakis. In fact, he was in Washington, D.C. today. The daggone bird texted me Sunday. He said, "Hey, call me Monday, because we're trying to work something out." So I call him Monday, and he sends me a text. He says, "Sorry, can't talk. I'm at the White House getting ready to watch President Trump." I'm like, "Holy cow!" And so he sends me this text, and I was like, "You dog, didn't take me with you." Yeah. So we're going to talk tomorrow, but. So we're involved. We stay in communication with the Ohio Right to Life. We work with them. They're very active in getting pro-life legislation through the Ohio House and the Senate, and on to the governor's desk. And last week was a very big victory for Ohio Right to Life and for the nation.
What kind of event was this? Is this an annual event that they do, or was this something called special?
They have an annual legislative day where we go up and meet with legislators, lawmakers, and lobby them about bills that are coming up on the Senate or the House. And, last week was a little different. They had us up. In fact, we even spoke to the audience there for a bit. But they had us there because it was sort of arranged, but it was kind of a fluke, where the Ohio Senate was actually voting on Senate Bill 23, the heartbeat bill, whether to pass it and send it on to the House of Representatives. So it was a big deal. The heartbeat bill has been 9 or 10 years in the making, and finally come up for a yay or nay. And it was kind of interesting to watch the debate on the floor and hear those who are in favor of it and hear those who are opposed to it, and their arguments why that an abortion cannot be performed once a heartbeat is detected. And that's typically at the 8th or 12th week of a pregnancy through ultrasound. So once a heartbeat is detected, that's why it's called the heartbeat bill, then an abortionist cannot perform an abortion.
Right, and keep in mind, at 8 to 12 weeks, the mother has really only known she's been pregnant for maybe 6 of those weeks.
Yeah, possibly. So, it was very. There was only a couple of protesters. We anticipated more, but Planned Parenthood was there, and it was it was in full. The Senate floor was packed, and the Senate gallery was packed. And we anticipated more demonstrations and more opposition, but there was just a couple of people were let out of the Senate floor.
Yeah, and of course, this all influenced your blog. Now, folks, Dell's blog can be found at delldidway.com, which is a little hard to spell. It's DEL for Dell, and then Didway is spelled DUDUIT.com. And Dell blogs every week, has been doing so for about 3 years, and in fact, he pulled the trigger early because of what we're doing here for the first time in 3 years. So.
Yeah. That's good.
I'm sure your following will understand. And
Dell,
reading your blog, there's really three components in it that kind of struck me. One is the political, and that was pretty encouraging. But then the moral, the spiritual, the indignation of what's going on, and that kind of is a slither of the political, because you see people on the Senate floor or the House floor speaking out against not letting a baby die from a botched abortion. It's hard to hold it back, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and so it was interesting because the Senate unanimously passed a resolution urging Congress, United States Congress, to protect the child once it's born if it survives an abortion. And you had Virginia's governor, a couple of weeks ago said that if a baby survives an abortion, then they can just let it die on the table, and he has support for that. And I'm like, that child's born; it's a citizen of this United States, and
yes, it should at that point
should have
it has a name.
Protection. Yeah, should have the protection of any illegal immigrant coming into our nation.
It would seem to me that a live birth certificate should be issued.
Yeah,
and like you say, that is a citizen that enjoys the protection we all enjoy.
So New York and Virginia is just going completely crazy in this, but we were encouraged because typically in Ohio, it's 23-9 as far as Republicans and Democrats, and typically it's a party line vote, but all Democrats in this case voted for this resolution, and it was, I say, very encouraging because typically they vote party lines, and the vote to pass the heartbeat bill was not party lines. It was 19-13, so 4 Republicans strayed from the fold.
Yeah, and, so you have, that's a big mixed bag. On the one hand, we had some Democrats that were doing the unexpected, and then of course we had some Republicans doing the. I would like to continue to think of that as unexpected, but unfortunately, it's less true than not.
Well, this bill, it said on former Governor Kasich last year was presented to him, and he vetoed the bill. And John Kasich, even though the last couple of years he's kind of lost his mind, he's always been a pro-life governor and still is. But he vetoed that bill last year, not because he was against it, but it was wording in the bill that would not have stood up in court.
So that would have set a precedent to make it harder to fix it.
Yes, and so what Ohio Right to Life did, and their lobbyists and their legislators got together and made it to where they feel like 99.9% this will stand up in court when challenged. There was some other good news come about last week where the 6th District Court of Appeals ruled in favor of Ohio Right to Life that tax dollars, my tax dollars, can no longer fund Planned Parenthood in Ohio. And that's a huge victory because Planned Parenthood was arguing that they had their corporation had a right to our tax dollars. Well, then that means like Bob Evans or Sauter County Right to Life has rights to my tax dollars. And so Ohio is leading the charge, and it has defunded Planned Parenthood. And that's a huge victory that will sweep across this nation. And eventually you'll see Planned Parenthood just debunked because that name is so atrocious. It makes it sound like you're planning a family, and actually you're killing a family.
I remember seeing some videos that somebody was calling Planned Parenthood asking for some parenthood planning. And of course, they don't offer that.
No. And so one of the things I tried to point out in that is how the left and how those have disguised this. The empathy, the mother's right to choose, and shouldn't come between her doctor and her. And that's just a bunch of lies. And that's
it
all
is,
it
but
is.
Dale, here's the problem. I said last week with another guest, we're in a post-truth culture. We're in a culture that denies that a man's a man and a woman's a woman. That and so it doesn't surprise me contextually that the left would make arguments to bolster their position. What surprises me is that people are so gullible as to believe it because they want to believe it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a lot of form of rebellion. And I try not to get preachy in my blogs because somebody can say, he's just, but I try to point out that side of it too. But I try to make my argument first and then, verify it with scripture, because a lot of folks will say, well, I don't believe that stuff.
Right.
So I try to present facts too in that.
Yeah, I like to present arguments, in terms of evolution. They're facts that are not debated. These are not political. They're not social. They're just facts like gravity. So these facts are not in dispute. It's easier to win. I think that the Planned Parenthood strategy going forward is probably going to take the form of other organizations are getting government funds for doing the same procedure. We perform that procedure. It's got a code, just like the insurance companies use, and to deny us that would be wrong. Well, to that I would say, but you were involved in some felonious activities, selling baby parts, and you gave up your right. You got blacklisted, basically. I think that we could repel that argument along those lines. Del, the thing that really blew me away, I took some time, and I can't wait. I watched the trailer for the movie that you pointed out in your blog. Do you know much about that movie, or?
Yeah, some because my wife was one of the people who's bringing it into our area before it's released, because they're having this big and we bought out 2 cinemas in Portsmouth, Ohio, and we're selling tickets in advance. And we have a lot of interest.
How's that work? Tell me how that works.
We had to. Well, Angie reached out to the promoter, and they said, "Well, sure, and they sent us a big kit this weekend, and the promotional material, and like 250 tickets to sell." And so we're just promoting it very, very heavily. And
you go to a movie theater and say, "I'd like to close the place," and how do you do it?
Yeah, we've bought 2 cinemas, or rented out 2 cinemas for that night. And when we were there, we were there. We'll have those 2 cinemas. Will be ours. I think there's 8 in this building. Okay. But we'll have 2 of them.
Right. And can you just have people go that want to go? I mean, can you exclude people?
I haven't thought about that. I don't think we will. But
it depends on the person.
Sold out anyway. Yeah, I don't think we'll sell out. I don't think we will discriminate, but we will have some security there, because a few years ago when we brought in Tim Tebow's mom to speak, we had some security outside. Right. And we have a couple of folks who'll volunteer their time, who are cops, who are going to stand there and just make sure there's no riffraff going on and no protesting. Folks,
I encourage you to go to DelDuduit.com. I gave you the spelling. It's DELDUDUIT, DelDuduit.com, and read his blog. He has a link to the trailer of this movie, and it's hard to watch that movie without being emotionally just absolutely shaken.
Yeah, and we're going to encourage folks, not just in my area, obviously, but across the nation, go watch this film. If you're on the bubble, if you're so I don't call it pro-choice, because you're not pro-choice. Go watch the movie, because the lady who's in this movie, she worked for Planned Parenthood.
She was the youngest director of a Planned Parenthood facility. Yeah. And everything was fine until she actually saw what was going on.
Saw the abortion. And we brought in a nurse, and the name escapes me right now, but several years ago, we brought in Gianna Jessen to speak, and she survived the late-term abortion. And she has some birth defects, but she spoke very elegantly. And then we brought in I can't remember her name, we brought in a nurse who worked in Dayton at Dr. Haskell's clinic, who's about to ready to get shut down. His clinic's about ready to get shut down through Ohio Right to Life. She watched a partial birth abortion, and she was just amazed at what she saw, that baby's wiggling and trying to, fighting back, trying to survive. in the womb, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, what are we doing here?"
We would,
So,
and we would have more empathy for an animal.
did you know that you are fined in jail time if you destroy a bald eagle's egg, right? And a turtle's egg. You face $250 fine and a year in jail.
Right.
But you can go into a mother's womb and kill a child, and you're applauded by New York and Virginia.
Right. Here in Florida, we have sea oats. And
Yeah.
if you pluck up a sea oat by the root, okay, buddy, that's not the same as littering the highway. You're going to jail. And how is that different from reaching in the womb and tearing up a baby and pulling it? What's the difference?
There's none, because, well, there's a lot of difference. They're destroying a human life, but they place more emphasis on a bald eagle's egg and a turtle's egg.
Yeah, the difference is we've accepted abortion.
Because folks like Planned Parenthood have dehumanized the child.
Exactly.
And they've played on emotions instead of facts, so they can't argue with facts.
No. And they're very deceptive. You know,
They are.
abortion is only 3% of the services even the New York Times gave that a Pinocchio or 5 Pinocchios.
And then, Ohio Right to Life was successfully 2 weeks ago when Governor Kasich signed the dismemberment and abortion ban. That's going to be in the courts next week. And Ohio Right to Life feels that they're going to have a battle, but they feel they will eventually be successful in getting that procedure banned. It
seems to me that Ohio is a bellwether state in the pro-life movement. Is that a fair assessment?
Ohio Right to Life is one of the leaders among the nation. They've had 17 bills passed last year, pro-life bills passed. They're on track to be leading the country. There's just a couple other states that are very active as Ohio is, and it's because of our president and the vision and all the little chapters like ours who attended the little legislative day last week and rallied together. And these aren't just little old blue-haired women. They're your young adults and they're professionals who see the reality that this child, when there's a heartbeat. When there's a heartbeat, that means there's blood moving. It's alive. There's life. And when you go kill a life, and this, I'm going to get into this blog here in a couple of weeks about euthanasia, because we always talk about right to life as abortion, but there's also euthanasia about not killing.
Well, and one's going to lead to the other. I don't know which is going to come first, but I mean, this is what we're getting down to, and the nationalized healthcare system that we have is on the brink of having panels that say, well, we just can't afford to maintain this and basically pull the plug. This is the world we live in today.
And several years ago, when Sarah Palin was running for vice president, and she made the comment, these death panels, and she was scoffed at and mocked at. But by golly, she's right on the nose. There are death panels overseas in the Netherlands who get together and say
it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is right now insurance companies are kind of doing the same thing. For example, I've got my wife's cousin is really doing. I don't know how he's going to make it, but he's requiring transfusion after transfusion, dialysis, transfusion. At some point, the insurance company is going to say you're not getting better. And when they say pull the plug, they're pulling the plug on the money. Right. However, if you nationalize that, now it's the government. They can now pull the plug. Period.
Yeah,
so there's a difference. Force of law.
You're going to need some type of medical procedures, and they're going to say, you know what, Coach, your chances of making it probably aren't that good.
Yeah, and you're getting older. Yeah,
And we need this bed over here for somebody. So. Sorry, but you've lived a good life, and we're going to edge you out the door.
Yeah,
that is the law of the land over in the UK. They can do that if they choose.
Yeah,
and it's scary because it's coming that way. So hopefully we'll get some pro-life people. That's why it's important to pro-life people at all levels. People say, well, commissioner or sheriff, because they're going to go on and on. And school board members. It's important to see if a person's going to defend a life, then they have pretty good integrity.
Well, it seems to me, that if we're going to deal with problems like euthanasia, if we're going to deal with problems like botched abortions and what to do after that, wouldn't it be easier just to deal with the unwanted pregnancy? I mean, really, I
course.
understand an unwanted pregnancy is in fact unwanted. I get that. But there's so many better options there that are easier to fix than to deal with the horror. It seems to me a bad bargain.
Yeah, and you know, I always go back to the example that Pam Tebow gave. She was encouraged to abort Tim, and what would have, you know, we wouldn't have Tim Tebow here today if she had listened to them. And how many other people have they told you should do this to, who would have, you know, who would have very, you know, everybody would have been productive, but it's just sad that we have a society that they've accepted this and they defend and they fight that it's my body. You know, ask the child; he doesn't want to get killed.
Yeah.
That's why when that lady watched that abortion, she saw that baby fighting.
Yeah. Well, and you know, we live in a very sanitized culture. Technology has brought us much. For example, on a different scale or different scope, actually, you know, we go to the grocery store and we see all this meat and we say, boy, that's some nice meat. If you would have seen that meat slaughtered, you might throw up. Okay, there's a nasty side to this. Well, that's kind of like the abortion. They put this facade out there. They say they're women's reproductive health care. What a untruth! It's just untruth. Pregnancy is not a disease.
No, and plus there's also scripture where God said that He provided the animals for meat for us to eat.
I can say we do have to eat, and you know, I used to get as a child. You watch, you know, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. You see this brutal killing going on in the wild. Well, that's the world we live in. God actually didn't intend it that way. You know, but we're living for somebody else's sin.
Yeah, thank God we have A1 sauce though. It helps.
I'm kind of a meat eater myself, you know.
I love meat, but so I'm gonna get into this later because this is if I get into this now, I think we'll be on here for 2 hours. But yeah, I am pro-life, but I'm also, you know, pro-death penalty. And people say, how can you do that?
Well, that'll be interesting, Dale, because I'm a conservative, but I'm actually against the death penalty, and so I think it'd be an interesting conversation between two adults.
And we can have that discussion and still be friends. And you know,
I'll tell you why, and you tell me why, and you know, and neither of us will change the other's mind, but at least we'll be enlightened.
I'll still come down and we'll still go fishing.
Hey, speaking of coming down, you still got Drew Brees in your crosshairs?
Yeah, in May. Yeah.
Oh, May. Okay, moved up a little bit. Okay, good. Yeah. Well, I hope if you get close enough, we can have a cup of coffee. You know.
Yeah, he lives out in San Diego, but.
Oh well, I won't be there. No,
I won't be there.
I thought New Orleans for some reason. I don't know.
He just plays there, but he lives in San Diego.
I see. Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. Book's been. Let me wrap it up. Book's been out 3 weeks. How's it going?
It's doing really well. We were actually the day after last week when we were up at Columbus, Ohio. We were the next day at the Ashland, Ohio, where our book distributor is at, and the place is phenomenally huge up in Ashland, Ohio, and it's going really well. He's told me that the book's doing better than normal, better than his average books will do.
I'll have to take your word for it, man. I'm just proud of you. And you got more coming. So, by the way, your video that we did just promoting this show is well over 4,000 views. And Dale, you're just, you know, I think God's blessings are upon you. And I forget how the heck I ran into you. I really do.
It was through Twitter, and I think it's because of that new set. That's why we had so many views. It looks great.
Thank you. You know, I actually botched it earlier. We'll do better next time. I'm still learning all this stuff. And, you know, by the way, the reason we're doing this is I will be in, PJNET will be in Montgomery, Alabama, on the steps of the Capitol building, protesting, well, actually not protesting, encouraging a piece of legislation that will return power to the state and to the school districts on how they run their schools. And buddy, we are taking this show on the road, and awesome. I'm nervous about it. And well, one thing, if the weather's bad, all this work and all this, I'm not bringing that stuff out in the rain. But if it doesn't rain, we're going to have 5 cameras rolling and we'll be recording and producing. We will not be live. There is no internet connection there. And we will hope to put that together and put it on the YouTube and make a difference, folks, because what we're building here, and Dell's a partner in it, and with Wild Bill and Roger, we're building a network of people, patriot journalists, just ordinary citizens, not not elite intellectual politicians and such. But folks, if this country's going to change, there's really two things that I think are going to have to happen. One, it's got to be a spiritual revival. Number two, it's not going to be a top-down thing, although we want to leverage that. The way that you leverage that is bottom-up. What do you think, Dill?
That's awesome, because I was in Columbus at the State House last week. You're going to be at the State House this week. So, it takes people like this, not like us, but folks to get out and do things.
Well, let's
awesome.
hope for the best. Dell, thank you for making arrangements to be with us tonight. Thank you for giving so generously of your time and accommodating this. And Dell, we want to be an encouragement to you and be supportive of you, and we just appreciate your ministry and taking the time to share with us tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving me some time.
All right. Thank you, Dell. Well, folks, I hope that you are blessed as I am to hear from Dell Didway, and he's got a lot of good news coming out of Ohio, and he's at the tip of the spear, and it's great to have that contact with him. So we'll wrap it up for tonight. Remember, Friday night we have Refugee will be on board, and that will be after we're back from Montgomery, Alabama, and hopefully we'll have more to report then. And for now, we'll shut her down right here on PJNET Live.